Okay, I want to go through and look at the most undervalued running backs in fantasy. Whether or not you've already had your draft and maybe you're looking to trade for some of these guys. Maybe you haven't had your draft yet and you're waiting to go out there and find some decent values. But before we get into talking about Dameon Pierce here, make sure you go down there, drop a like on the video. I don't even have to tell you to subscribe. I mean, I think we are about 4,000 subscribers away from 90K. It looks like we may hit 90,000 before the season starts. It looks like we may get a 24-hour live stream draft marathon going. And if you want to draft in that 24-hour live stream draft marathon, if you want to draft with us any night on the live stream, make sure you go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Over there on Underdog, they're all best ball drafts. So that means there's no time commitment at all during the season. You don't submit a starting lineup. You don't have waivers. You don't even make trades. This is how I'm able to go through and draft over 700 teams on Underdog this year. So it's the perfect spot for you to get into some extra drafts, maybe practice if you haven't had your own yet. And if you go and make your first deposit on Underdog Fantasy with promo code FLOCK, they're going to match it dollar for dollar up to 100. So it's free for you to try out. And you'll get our 2022 fantasy football rankings and our 2022 fantasy football draft guide. 300 pages, going to help you even if you've already had your draft with legitimately just a $10 deposit. So make sure you take advantage of that. Link in the description, link in the live chat. But let's go through and let's look at our first running back on this list. Someone that is going relatively high in underdog drafts, but in these casual redraft leagues, I mean, according to Fantasy Pros ADP, Saquon Barkley has an ADP of running back 14. How? Now, I don't want to act too surprised because I've had a lot of messages down there in the comment section where people are telling me, oh, Mason, how do you like my team? I took Christian McCaffrey in the first, Travis Kelce in the second, then I got Saquon Barkley in the third. I'm sitting here going, okay, how is that even possible? Are you playing with children? But it looks like in some of these casual formats, Saquon Barkley is still falling to the end of the second round, the beginning of the third, despite every report that you look at saying that Saquon Barkley is finally fully healthy from that torn ACL. And we're not going to have to worry about this as a running back that is dealing with a committee backfield. I mean, last year it was disgusting. Obviously, he missed some time, but even in games where he played, Saquon Barkley just wasn't himself. He only averaged 50% of the carries on a per game basis and had about a 13% team target share. The workload simply wasn't there in New York for Barkley last season. And at the same time, Mike Glennon, Jake Fromm were taking starts at the quarterback position. Easily the worst offense in the NFL in the second half of the year in New York. This upcoming season, the offense should be dramatically better. Saquon Barkley should be fully healthy. And the last two seasons, we saw a fully healthy Saquon Barkley. Back in 2020, we got a small stretch to look at. In 2019, obviously, we had a larger sample. And in both those seasons, Saquon Barkley had a target share over 17% on a per game basis. We saw Saquon Barkley go at least 110 total yards a game. So if we're looking at Barkley, he is one of the very few running backs that can command 70% of his team's carries on a per game basis and get close to a 20% team target share. The workload's insane, not to mention the athletic profile. I know some people are worried about injuries. What I would say is, guys, 9 times out of 10, if you are avoiding a player because you think he's injury prone in fantasy football, you are fooling yourself. Injuries in football specifically are small sample, random occurrences for the most part. So take the discount, draft Saquon Barkley in the late second, early third round. And now let's go over to our next running back who I want to draft in full PPR formats. If you're playing in non-PPR, please ignore Travis Etienne here, but in a full PPR format, dear God, Travis Etienne looks exciting. Now with Etienne going to be playing in a very bad offense. I'm not a massive Trevor Lawrence believer. Trust me, I'm rooting for Lawrence. But even if I'm rooting for Lawrence, looking back at what we had his rookie season, I think that he is a long shot to become the quarterback that everybody, including myself, thought he would be going into year 2. Now, of course, we can blame a lot of his year 1 struggles on Urban Meyer, but I don't know if we can blame everything on that. But we know that with Lawrence, this was a quarterback that had an extremely high checkdown rate last year as a rookie. On top of this, he has that chemistry already built up with Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne, who fits the mold of this generation's Alvin Kamara, this generation's Aaron Jones, DeAndre Swift. This is a running back that's going to get every single target out of the backfield and has the upside to get the role in the red zone as well. Now, I still expect that James Robinson's going to be used in Jacksonville, and we've talked about this a couple times now. But with James Robinson, I don't care if he gets the carries between the 20-yard lines, because the carries between the 20-yard lines, they don't equal fantasy points. We see this with Jamal Williams sharing that backfield with Aaron Jones, or Jamal Williams sharing that backfield with DeAndre Swift. Hell, he can be a running back going out there and getting 11 touches on a week-to-week basis, but at the end of the day, he's taking 7-8 points away, where the other running backs are getting every high-value touch in that backfield. I think that Travis Etienne can potentially fit that build in an offense that should have to throw the ball a lot if we don't expect this to be a great defense. Now, there is that downside that maybe James Robinson has a role in the red zone. And if James Robinson has that red zone role, then I think that you would see the both floor and ceiling for Travis Etienne to go down, given the fact that, maybe the touchdown security isn't there. Now, with that being said, I'm still completely fine with this price. Like, on Fantasy Pros, being drafted as a running back 18, on Underdog being drafted as the running back 16 in a full PPR format, I'm completely fine going out there, paying this mid running back 2 price tag, because I think he could exceed it. But now let's go down to our next guy. Y'all know we had the bold claim a few weeks back, maybe a month back at this point, that J.K. Dobbins would be a 4th round redraft pick by the time the season got here. At the time, he was going in the 6th. But with J.K. Dobbins, I'm still all in going through and making this bet. If we look at running backs that his rookie season compares to historically based on the efficiency with the amount of volume that he had used as a threshold, you literally have guys like Jonathan Taylor, Adrian Peterson, a Saquon Barkley, Ezekiel Elliott, Clinton Portis, some elite level names on that list. Now I'll say, yes, I can already hear you in the comment section telling me, Mason, you're an idiot. Clearly that's because he was playing alongside Lamar Jackson. Anybody who plays alongside Lamar Jackson is going to have great efficiency. 100% fact. Thank you for leaving that comment, and we'll address it in 1 second. But also, let me tell you, if you have not left a comment yet, leave whatever you have in the comment section, whether or not that's a question, your fantasy football team. You can just go down there and tell me how stupid I am, because trust me, I know. And when you leave that comment, I'm going to respond to the first 200 on this video. But going back to J.K. Dobbins, that argument, in my opinion, is not necessarily valid, because he is in that same situation this upcoming season yet again. He's still playing behind a great offensive line with a great coaching staff alongside Lamar Jackson, who we know is going to boost the overall rushing efficiency in this offense, given the fact that how defensive coordinators and linebackers have to play against Lamar Jackson's style, in particular with the ability for Lamar Jackson to take the ball off the edge. So I'm looking at a great situation, a team that only passed the ball about 400 times in 2020, a team that has Gus Edwards on the PUP to start the season. Dobbins is an elite level player in a great situation on a team that wants to run the ball over and over and over again. And according to Fantasy Pros, currently being drafted as the running back 23, on Underdog at the time of this recording is being drafted as the running back 20. But I'm not going to be surprised if this price continues to go up and we end up seeing J.K. Dobbins as a running back 17, running back 18 by the time the season gets here. Now, our next guy is going to be someone that I'm not going to lie to you. On Underdog, everybody is already ahead of it. On Underdog, people are drafting him as the running back 25, and I'm not buying that price tag. But in your casual fantasy football leagues, on Fantasy Pros, Tony Pollard has an ADP of a running back 32. Here with Pollard, if we look at him compared to Ezekiel Elliott over the past 3 years, now I'm going to say, this is not completely fair to do, because Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott play 2 different roles in the offense. Pollard's playing in more obvious passing down situations where he's going to be going up against less stacked boxes. He's going to be going up against a softer defense in general as they prepare against the pass. So it's not completely fair to do this, but I do want to bring it up because there is a pretty sharp difference. Over the past 3 seasons, Tony Pollard has had a significantly higher average yards per carry compared to Ezekiel Elliott. Last year, 5.5 Tony Pollard compared to Ezekiel Elliott, 4.2. The year before that, 4.3 compared to 4. The year before that, 5.3 compared to 4.5. So we're seeing Tony Pollard consistently be a more efficient running back than Ezekiel Elliott. And like I said, if they swapped roles in this offense, you probably would see the yards per carry be about the same. Maybe Ezekiel Elliott would have a higher yards per carry. But what are we saying then? That they're comparable? That these 2 running backs are about on the same playing field? And we're looking at the Dallas Cowboys as a team that is consistently trying to get Pollard more involved. If we look at his carries per game over the past 3 years, 5.7 to 6.3 to 8.7, going from a 20% market share with these backfield carries up to a 31% this past season. We're seeing the same thing with his target share in this offense. The target share going from 3.5% to a little over 6% to 8% this past year. So Tony Pollard is consistently getting more involved, has consistently been more efficient than Ezekiel Elliott on a per touch basis. Not saying he's a better running back, but I'm saying they are comparable at this point. With Ezekiel Elliott, we've talked about him being a running back that I don't like in the third round because you're looking at the complete drop off with his overall play, that consistent linear line down since his rookie year in his rushing yards per game. Literally, he's been worse every single season since his rookie season. And it would make sense for Ezekiel Elliott, the running back who has over 2,000 total career touches, if you include the playoffs, only behind Mark Ingram among active NFL running backs, to lose a step for Tony Pollard to be implemented more and more. And with Tony Pollard in particular, why I think that he can be a running back you can possibly start even if Ezekiel Elliott's healthy, because if Gallup misses the beginning portion of the season, this offense will be without Michael Gallup, Amari Cooper, Cedric Wilson, and now James Washington. They'll have to use Tony Pollard in the slot. So I like the idea of going out there, drafting Pollard. He obviously has the contingency value if something were to occur to Ezekiel Elliott. But let's go over, let's look at another passing down running back. Let's look at James Cook here. James Cook, some people want to argue that he was the best passing down running back in this year's NFL draft. I think there's someone else we'll get to at the end. But this is someone that should be playing in an offense that wants to throw the ball over and over and over again. If you look at the Buffalo Bills, they're consistently at the top of the NFL in both passing rate over expectation, as well as pace of play in game neutral environments over the past 3 years. And what do we want in that backfield? Do we want the running back that's going to be getting the carries between the 20s? That's not going to be a great pass catcher. No, you don't want that on a pass happy offense, especially if Josh Allen's going to vulture rushing touchdowns at the goal line. Instead, give me the running back that can be thrown out in the slot, can line up out wide. Give me the running back that is easily the best passing down option in this offense. So I love James Cook at his current price tag. I mean, according to Fantasy Pros, ADP of running back 41. On Underdog, that's running back 35. Very similar to what we were talking about with some of these guys earlier, like Travis Etienne. James Cook's definitely a much better option in a full PPR format. Now let's go down to our next running back. Let's look at Darrell Henderson here, who, according to Fantasy Pros, running back 43. Now with Darrell Henderson, I am still a fan of Cam Akers. I still like Akers. I like Henderson as well. My thought process with this backfield is we know there will be points available. You're looking at a Los Angeles Rams offense that should be top 5 in the NFL in scoring. And if we're going to be projecting this out, you have no Sony Michel here anymore. You don't have that third little option in this offense that's going to be pissing everybody else off. Where I think that if we have Cam Akers coming out and getting 70% of his overall backfield's touches, he is going to be immediately a low-end running back 1, high-end running back 2, if we can get back to the efficiency he displayed as a rookie. But of course, there's still injury concern with Cam Akers. Cam Akers was a running back going in the first round last year before the torn Achilles. Now you're seeing Cam Akers consistently go in the 5th because there is that injury downside risk. So if you think there's that injury downside risk, why are we not picking up Darrell Henderson when, if something were to occur to Cam Akers where he can't play the beginning portion of the season, then all of a sudden Darrell Henderson could be the starting running back for one of the league's best offenses. And now let's go over to our next running back. I'm not as excited about him as I once was, but Kenneth Gainwell here. Kenneth Gainwell, running back 47 according to Fantasy Pros, running back 44 on Underdog. Very similar to some of these other guys. I like him in a PPR format, non-PPR, you're not interested. But with Gainwell, the thesis is, if you look at his rookie season, he demonstrated the ability to have access to those high-value touches. He showed that he can be involved as a pass catcher to the backfield and also be looked to in the red zone in particular. Miles Sanders has been injured all training camp, but the reason I'm not as excited about this call as I used to be is it looks like Boston Scott's going to be involved in some capacity in Philadelphia, and I don't know if I was just tricking myself, trying to convince myself otherwise earlier this offseason. Clearly, I was idiotic for coming out here and trying to tell myself that Boston Scott wasn't going to have the same role he had last year. But now all of a sudden, if Boston Scott is a running back consistently getting snaps in Philly, I don't think we could see Kenneth Gainwell be a top 12 running back anymore in fantasy, even if Miles Sanders were to go down, because it would turn into a committee. But right now, literally, if you're following this Fantasy Pros ADP, this is someone that's maybe on your waiver wire. And our last running back we'll have on this list, I think that he was honestly a better pass catcher in this year's NFL draft over James Cook. I mean, I was surprised to see James Cook get drafted over him. Rachaad White. With Rachaad White going to a backfield where we know Tom Brady is going to have one of the highest checkdown rates in the entire NFL. We know that this offense in general is going to be top 3 in passing rate over expectation, as well as top 3 in pace of play. So with those two factors, I think that you're looking at this offense as just one that's going to produce fantasy points regardless of who it is. And with Leonard Fournette, we know that this has been a team that's tried to split the backfield for a very long time. Hell, they've gone out there. They signed Giovanni Bernard last offseason. They went through and drafted Keyshawn Vaughn in the 3rd round the offseason before that. And now they take Rachaad White in the 3rd round. I think you should have a small passing down role in games where Leonard Fournette is healthy. And if Leonard Fournette were to miss time, then obviously Rachaad White does have the contingency upside of being a running back getting 6.5 targets per game from Tom Brady down the stretch. Now, I think that's all I got for you. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, go down there, drop that like. Like I said, I'm going to respond to the first 200 comments on this video. So if you have any questions, if you want to just tell me how dumb I am, hell, go for it down there in the comment section. Subscribe to the channel. We hit 90,000. We are going to get that 24-hour live stream draft marathon going. And if you want to draft with us in that 24-hour live stream or draft with us at any point, we stream every single night. Make sure you go sign up for Underdog Fantasy. Use promo code FLOCK when you sign up. They'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. You'll get our 2022 fantasy football rankings and our 2022 fantasy football draft guide with a $10 deposit. But thank you again. I appreciate you. I hope I get to see you in the live stream tonight. If not, I really do hope you have a great day.